Well, guys, it's almost that time of year again. It's time to pick out a most valuable player. Last year, it wasn't even fun. There was nothing to talk about. We all knew Tom Brady was going to win it, so it wasn't even worth talking about because we knew for a fact that Tom Brady was winning it. This year, it's a little more interesting. So let's break it down. In my mind, there are 4 real candidates right now. Somebody else is probably going to get a vote. Peyton Manning, DeAngelo Williams, Chad Pennington, and Phillip Rivers. And I guess 5 candidates. I forgot about Michael Turner of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't count Adrian Peterson here because he has like 9 fumbles on the year. He has a severe case of fumbleitis. So I'm not going to include him here. I think he's out. As great a player as he is, he's out. So let's look at who I think should win Peyton Manning. If you look at the straight numbers, his numbers are great. He threw 27 touchdowns, which is a little below his career average, but among the top in the league. He threw 12 interceptions, among the best in the league among quarterbacks that played the whole season, which he did, and also below his career average, which is something like 14. He threw for just over 4,000 yards, which is like, I think, 5th or 4th in the league, which is a little below his career average, about 100 yards. He had a 95 quarterback rating, which is his lowest since 2002, but it's also above his career average, and really just as good as he was last year, more or less. He took only 14 sacks, which is the second lowest total of his career, on a team that had a very poor offensive line. His completion percentage was well above his career average he completed like 67% of his passes, well above his career average. He completed well above his career average in completions. I think his attempts were a little above his career average. So people who think Manning's stats are down, you're wrong. He has a few less touchdowns, a few less yards. His quarterback rating's a couple points lower. At the same time, he has fewer interceptions. He has more attempts and completions than usual. He has a higher completion percentage. And he's done all this on one of the lesser teams he has been on in his career. So his numbers are not down. That's myth number 1. The most important thing about Peyton Manning this year is not the numbers. It's the most valuable player should go to the most valuable player. Numbers is not always value. If you look at Peyton Manning, you will see that he kind of sort of limped through the first month and a half of the season because of that knee surgery. If you go and read the details, the gruesome details about what happened to his knee, I think maybe you'll understand a little bit of why he was not playing up to par in the early part of the season. However, he stayed out there on the field. He limped through 4, 5, 6 games, and he pulled out 2 miracle wins. Yeah, the Colts started off weak. They started 3-4, I think it was. You have to realize that Minnesota game, they had no place winning that game. They could not run the ball on Minnesota. They could not stop Adrian Peterson. Manning didn't play that well that game, but he led the Colts on an amazing comeback at the end to win. He did the same thing against Houston. He struggled a little bit against Houston, and he can thank the defense for that win a lot. But he still played great in that game. They owe their success, a lot of their success in that game, to Peyton Manning. The point I'm making is that even though Peyton Manning was playing on one knee, on one leg effectively, even though he wasn't playing that well, he was keeping the Colts alive. If they lose those games, which they should have, really, they should have lost those games, they're done. You can pretty much forget about it. They would have given up on this season a long time ago. And then he gets back on track, somewhere around the New England game, leads them on a 9-game winning streak. They needed him to throw every yard that he did. If you look at the close games they won, Minnesota, they don't win that game if Peyton Manning doesn't go crazy at the end. Houston, they don't win that game if Peyton Manning doesn't go crazy at the end. New England, they needed Manning to be spot on in that game, which he pretty much was because that was a very close win. Pittsburgh game, they needed everything he had in that game, and he played very strongly and gave them a close win. The other Houston game, close win. They needed everything they got from Manning. The San Diego game, another close win. Cleveland game, he sucked. Really, the whole team sucked. They pulled out a fluke win. The Cincinnati game was an easy win. They could have won that game with anybody at quarterback pretty much. Detroit actually gave them a fight. Manning's great performance in that game was a major factor. They should have been blown out the second time against Jacksonville, but Peyton Manning decided to have one of the greatest games I have ever seen played by a quarterback. And finally, the last game against Tennessee, which is kind of meaningless. So, if you look at all the close games that Indianapolis won this year, where Manning played really well, I listed just now like 6 or 7. You will see that he has been worth so much to this team. They're 12-4. Without Manning, I think they're like 4-12. They needed him to go out of his mind so many times this year to win close games. That's value. You look at DeAngelo Williams. He had a great season. 5.5 yards per carry, 1,515 yards, 18 touchdowns. Here's the thing. He splits carries. For every 60 carries DeAngelo takes, Jonathan Stewart takes 40. Now, I could be wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But running backs who win MVP win the MVP because they take the full load. I don't think there's ever been a running back winning MVP even though he splits carries more or less evenly with somebody else. DeAngelo's had a great season, but he does not carry the full load for the Carolina offense like Sean Alexander did when he won MVP, or LT, or Emmitt Smith when he won those MVPs, or Barry Sanders, or whoever. He owes his yard per carry average, which is very good, to being able to split carries with Jonathan Stewart and pound down defenses with somebody else. So I don't really think he's an MVP. He's had a great season. He deserved the Pro Bowl. I don't know about MVP. Then you have Chad Pennington. He's had a great season. He turned the Dolphins around. He was a major part of that. He brought credibility to that franchise. He's a comeback player of the year candidate, but do not think that the only difference between the Dolphins this year and the Dolphins last year is Chad Pennington. I don't think Chad Pennington should be awarded because Cam Cameron is a retard who was very lucky to win a single game last year. Chad Pennington had nothing to do with Cam Cameron being too retarded to win more than one game as a Dolphins head coach last year. The Dolphins this year, the difference was they also had a healthy Ronnie Brown and they had Ricky Williams. Ted Ginn Jr. played better. Greg Camarillo broke out as a quality player and he played most of the season. Defensively, Joey Porter had a huge season after last year where he really didn't do anything. Will Allen had a huge year. Andre Goodman was big. So the point is, if you're going to... and last but not least, Tony Sperano came on, and Bill Parcells finally got to impact this team. So do not think that Chad Pennington was the only reason why the Dolphins turned it around this year. That's not true. Don't think that. So you look at his numbers. They're very efficient, but he didn't top 20 touchdowns. He didn't top. He didn't top 3,700 yards. It was very efficient, very solid, but not good volume stats. So I don't know if he's the MVP. I wouldn't vote for him. Next guy, Phillip Rivers. He's had a great year statistically. In terms of pure statistics, he's the best quarterback in the league. My thing is, I don't know how valuable he is to the Chargers. How valuable can you be to a team when that team isn't that good? The Chargers, yeah, they're in the playoffs. They won the division. Yay. But they are 8-8 in a crap division. That division should give them 6 free wins. It doesn't because the Chargers are not good enough to claim 6 free wins. But it's, he's obviously played great. But if you go back and look at his stats over the season, he put up these big numbers in games that San Diego lost or San Diego won in a blowout. That's not really value. Peyton Manning puts up big numbers that are of value to his team. They need him to put up those big numbers to win. Rivers put up big numbers this year, but that wasn't the case for him. He would lose a lot of games where he had big games, and he would win games in a blowout when he had big games. And sometimes he didn't show up when they needed him. Lastly, I'm running out of time here. Michael Turner, I think he's the number 2 candidate right now. He's had a great season, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. His yard per carry average is like 4.5. I think that's going to be what undoes him. And does nothing as a receiver. He's a completely useless receiver. I will say that if Turner wins, I'll be cool with it because there's not a huge argument against him. But I think Peyton Manning's the guy here. I'm rooting for him. I think he's going to do it for those reasons. So I'm going to see you guys later. I'll talk about the wild card round when it comes around. See ya.